Silence, all stand and remain standing until the conclusion of the reading of the proclamation. Ladies and gentlemen, the proclamation. All persons having any business before this honorable court, please draw nigh, give your attendance, and you shall be heard. God save the Queen.
Admission of lawyers. Ifeanyi Okechukwu Anene.
May it please the court, I move that Ifeanyi Okechukwu Anene be admitted as a lawyer of this honourable court.
Let Ifeanyi Okechukwu Anene be admitted as a lawyer of this court.
Cynthia Marquez Bacalao.
May it please the court, I move that Cynthia Marquez Bacalao be admitted as a lawyer of this honourable court.
Let Cynthia Marquez Bacalao be admitted as a lawyer of this court.
Jack Dominic James Fernan.
May it please the court, I move that Jack Dominic James Fernan be admitted as a lawyer of this honourable court.
Let Jack Dominic James Fernan be admitted as a lawyer of this court.
Matthew Joseph French.
Please the court, I move that Matthew Joseph French be admitted as a lawyer of this honourable court.
Let Matthew Joseph French be admitted as a lawyer of this court.
Dallas Zhengning Gay.
May it please the court, I move that Dallas Zhengning Gay be admitted as a lawyer of this honourable court.
Let Dallas Ngay be admitted as a lawyer of this court.
Alex Sebastian Jarman.
May it please the court, I move that Alex Sebastian Jarman be admitted as a lawyer of this honourable court.
Let Alex Sebastian Jarman be admitted as a lawyer of this court.
Andrew James C. Mulligan.
May it please the court, I move that Andrew Mulligan be admitted as a lawyer of this honourable court.
Let Andrew James C. Mulligan be admitted as a lawyer of this court.
Anna Scheible.
May it please the court, I move that Anna Scheible be admitted as a lawyer of this honourable court.
Let Anna Scheible be admitted as a lawyer of this court.
Yi Hao Shen.
May it please the court, I move that Yi Hao Shen be admitted as a lawyer of this honourable court.
Let Yi Hao Shen be admitted as a lawyer of this court.
Ashley Blaze Jr. Webb.
May it please the court, I move that Ashley Blaze Jr. Webb be admitted as a lawyer of this honourable court.
Let Ashley Blaze Jr. Webb be admitted as a lawyer of this court.
Justin Marcus White.
May it please the court, I move that Justin Marcus White be admitted as a lawyer of this honourable court.
Let Justin Marcus White be admitted as a lawyer of this court.
David Gordon Wilkes.
May it please the court, I move that David Gordon Wilkes be admitted as a lawyer of this honourable court.
Let David Gordon Wilkes be admitted as a lawyer of this court.
David Shue.
May it please the court, I move that David Shue be admitted as a lawyer of this honourable court.
Let David Shue be admitted as a lawyer of this court. It will be necessary for the purposes of an oath or affirmation that all those being admitted today stand up, but please remain in your current places. Could all admittees please stand?
Ifeanyi Okechukwu Anene. Cynthia Marquez Bacalao. Jack Dominic James Fernan. Matthew Joseph French. Dallas Zhengning Gay. Alex Sebastian Jarman. Andrew James C. Mulligan. Anna Scheible. Yi Hao Shen. Ashley Blaze Jr. Webb. Justin Marcus White. David Gordon Wilkes. David Shue. Do you severally swear or declare and affirm that you will truly and honestly conduct yourselves in the practice of a lawyer of the Supreme Court of New South Wales, and that you will faithfully serve as such in the administration of the laws and usages of this state according to the best of your knowledge, skill and ability? Would you please say, "So help me God," or "I do"? So help me God. Would you please be seated?
Now that the formal part of the proceedings has ended, I'd like to warmly welcome you to the Supreme Court of New South Wales. Present with me on the bench today to my right is Justice Brereton, who is a member of the Court of Appeal, and to my left Justice Rees, who is a member of the Equity Division of the Court. Together we constitute the Court that has, in exercise of its jurisdiction, admitted you to practice. As we gather here today, I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and pay my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. We recognise the long-standing and enduring customs and traditions of Australia's First Nations and acknowledge with deep regret the role our legal system has had in perpetrating many injustices against Australian, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. To all the new lawyers here today, welcome to the legal profession. Today is a day for celebration. You've all worked extremely hard to get here through caffeine-fuelled nights and obscure problem questions, reading countless wafer-thin pages of textbooks and more cases than you can hope to remember. Rest assured, for those with a bibliophobia, that is a fear of running out of reading material, that as lawyers, that fear will never materialise. You have entered the world of eggshell skulls, encountered a mysterious reasonable person, and have understood that the Constitution means so much more than just the vibe of the thing. In becoming a lawyer, you have today joined a centuries-old profession with ancient origins. The custom of advocates swearing an admissions oath dates back to the 12th century. This court first admitted lawyers to practice in 1824, and by 1830 the names of lawyers were entered onto rolls in this state. You have now become part of this tradition almost 200 years later. Perhaps for some of you, or for your family and friends, that is how long it feels like you've been studying. On that note, I'm also pleased to welcome those with you today or watching on the live stream. For many of you, the support of your family and friends has no doubt been invaluable. No doubt they have also often been on the receiving end of your finely polished skills of argument and persuasion. I do encourage you to take the time to thank them this evening. The oath or affirmation you have made today is a serious one and deserves solemn regard. Whether you work in private practice, at the bar, in a community legal centre, or in an entirely different field, you should be known for your honesty, your integrity, and your commitment to justice. It is in acknowledgement of this weighty responsibility that we observe today's unique formalities, including the moving of lawyers, swearing of oaths or making of affirmations, and even our somewhat unusual choice of fashion. On one occasion some years ago, I recall a young member of the audience asking if we were doing Santa photos after the ceremony. I was very sorry to disappoint her. However, although we mark this occasion with formality and tradition, not everything in the legal profession remains unchanging. You'll be unsurprised to hear that last year we had to adapt quite a bit. COVID-19 meant a rapid shift to increased use of virtual courtroom setups and technology to ensure access to justice continued in the midst of a pandemic. Things didn't always go smoothly, as those with me on the bench can probably attest to. There have been real difficulties to grapple with in terms of open justice, effective communication and fairness to participants. And occasionally a lawyer might even get stuck behind a Zoom kitten filter. But for all the challenges we faced, the impetus is greater than ever before for us to prioritise flexibility and accessibility. Better use of technology and increased working from home arrangements have profound implications for how our legal system interacts with many people, including those in rural and remote areas, those with a disability, medical conditions or carers' responsibilities. As the newest members of the profession, you are at the forefront of innovation in the law and have a unique opportunity to see through changes so that justice is done openly and equitably. There are, of course, other changes that deserve attention. When we think of the diversity of the legal profession, we encounter the duality that we have come very far and that much still needs to be done. Though women were originally not permitted to practice, since 2018, women have made up more than half of all the solicitors with a practising certificate in New South Wales and currently make up 63% of solicitors under the age of 30. Women occupy many of the most senior positions in the law, including, of course, the Chief Justice of Australia. However, Women continue to face challenges of representation, including amongst judges of this court and, for example, amongst barristers in speaking roles before the High Court. Conversely, it is heartening to see that the local court of New South Wales has almost achieved gender parity amongst magistrates, but we must not be complacent about these issues. There are other noticeable diversity concerns that we must face head on. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples and people from diverse cultural backgrounds continue to be alarmingly underrepresented in the legal profession, and particularly within the judiciary and the ranks of senior counsel. We must also be alert to barriers to the profession for people from less privileged backgrounds. Law should not be a profession for the wealthy, and the idea that students may be dissuaded from studying law by the cost of a law degree, which this year has again increased, or because of other systemic issues, is troubling. Not just this, but we will only achieve a truly diverse profession when barriers to advancement are broken down and people from different backgrounds are properly supported in a collegiate and inclusive environment free from harassment and discrimination. These issues are fundamental to a just and transparent legal system and to the legitimacy of the rule of law. We need diverse representation amongst advocates and judges so that all people who become involved in our justice system can be properly heard and fairly engaged with by a system reflective of our broader community. Despite these challenges, there is real scope for change. There is far greater diversity of background amongst junior lawyers than those who have been around for as long as me. And you only need to look around this courtroom at your fellow admittees and then at the paintings of the wall to see that this is so. You are in a unique position as new lawyers who are entering the profession at a time when more than ever your words and actions are having an impact for good. You are being heard and taken seriously when you agitate to correct injustices, whether it be speaking out about unsustainable working cultures, sexual harassment or bullying within the profession, unfair laws, or systemic failings affecting our society's most vulnerable. I urge you to continue to speak about these things. They do matter. You are the future of the profession and will steer the direction it will take. As a lawyer, you will also need to make difficult ethical decisions at times. With regard to our personal circumstances, lawyers have been the butt of jokes for centuries. Some would say there are only a handful of lawyer jokes, the rest are true stories. But jokes aside, you must use the tools you have developed to think critically and not compromise on your fundamental duties to the court and the administration of justice, as well as the other ethical duties you must uphold. Now that you're lawyers, you can get paid to argue instead of just arguing for free. Of course, there is a lot more to it than that. You're an advisor, a problem solver, a mediator, and an advocate for the marginalised. As you go about your day-to-day work, remember that you're not merely dealing with the law in a vacuum, but law as it applies to people's lives. For this reason, you must strive to deliver legal services competently and fearlessly, with courtesy and integrity. Justice Gageler, before he was a High Court judge, once said, "You must be prepared to give the same answer to the same questions for the same reasons, no matter who asks the question or for what purpose or in what context the asking may occur." This is foundational to upholding the rule of law. For those of you who will practice law, the way you communicate information to others will have profound consequences for access to justice. For a non-lawyer, law is often incomprehensible. One of your roles as a lawyer will be to make law accessible to others, sometimes by deciphering legal complexities, other times by deciphering poor legal drafting, and sometimes both. One thing you will regrettably strike throughout your career is legislation which seems carefully crafted with the object of ensuring that absolutely no one can understand it. Your task is not just to understand it, but to explain it clearly to those whose rights and interests are affected by it. As lawyers, we must not keep the law not locked up as something knowable only to us. A client reading any advice you give should be empowered to understand your meaning, not mystified and confused. So be clear and concise in your writing and your speaking. Plain English is powerful. Consider, do I really need to say aforementioned or herewith? Must I sprinkle in that Latin phrase? Should I really use double negatives, tautologies, and wordy clauses that take up a whole page? I would suggest the answer to these questions is usually no. The best advocates can make their point simply and succinctly. Now, some of the most experienced lawyers and judges could from time to time use that reminder. Do not acquire bad habits from them. I also want to speak about failure. I would not be surprised if there were quite a few overachievers and perfectionists in the room today. Even so, at various points of your career, you will make mistakes, some minor, perhaps some more serious. When you do make mistakes, your commitment to honesty, integrity and the administration of justice means that you must take responsibility, correct what you can and learn from those errors. You must fail in times in order to grow. What is important is that you try not to make the same mistake twice. I myself have made many mistakes over the year, far too many to remember. Even as Chief Justice, my decisions on occasions have been successfully appealed to the High Court. When that happens, I'm obliged to grit my teeth and tell myself that the infallibility of the High Court is not just a fiction, but in fact, even at times, dissenting High Court judgments have later become the law. Finally, I want to emphasise that your mental health is extremely important. This may sound unexpected at this type of ceremony, but the law is not everything. There may be times when you feel overwhelmed, burnt out or distressed. If you do, you should not be afraid to seek professional help or take a step back when you need to. Also remember, the law is a collegiate profession, and in times of difficulty, the support of your peers will prove invaluable. Although you might find it hard to believe, I was admitted quite a long time ago. I lost my first case, and I lost many more after that. But throughout my 35 years in practice, I could always count on the other barristers on my floor to share my disappointment at the unfairness of the verdict, the slight tactics of opposing counsel, and most often, I regret to say, the obtuseness of the judge or judges before whom I was appearing. And I hasten to add, I don't include either of my fellow judges on the bench in that comment. On behalf of all the judges of the Supreme Court, and particularly those sitting with me today, can I once again congratulate you on your admission and welcome you to the legal profession. The Court will now adjourn.
All stand. This honourable court is now adjourned. God save the Queen.